Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mana on the Rocks. It is I, Joe. We're back for another local brew. You know what that means? Atlas is in the stew.
Hello, everybody.
This week, we got none other, our first repeat guest, the cute boy himself, Kristian.
Hi.
Here again.
He's here again. Kristian's brought us a pretty sick brew, Hidetsugu and Kairi. We'll break it down here in a few minutes, but it's a pretty interesting take on a Dimir control style deck. We get into some pretty good conversation about it. But before we do that, Atlas, what are the announcements for this week?
Announcements for this week. All right. So, a couple of things. First and foremost, we mentioned it last week, but we are working on setting up a Patreon, so keep tuned for that. We're trying to figure out right now, sort out like what the perks of that are going to be for y'all. So you can decide if you'd like to
It's gonna be sick.
help us continue to produce Man on the Rocks and deliver additional content for y'all. Aside from that, 2 days after this episode releases, this week, myself and a couple of other players, I think Kristian's actually going to be there playing his sick deck.
See it in action.
Yeah, we're gonna go down to Portland, our neighborhood PDX group. They're gonna be playing at Guardian Games. There's a tournament down there. Cedh, 100% proxy. So me and a couple of other people from our local group will be down there. Unfortunately, Joe will not be able to join us this time. Yeah, so that's disappointing. But hopefully, if you're hearing this, go check out the Guardian Games website, register for the event. We'd love to see you down there, play some games against you, fight you in tournament, and answer any questions you may have about the show, or like talk about your decks, cool brews, things like that. Always down to have those conversations. And I think after that, the next event that we got coming up, I'll just start plugging it now, is Cedh, that's SEA, PDH's Fall Brawl. It's coming up on October 7th. Myself, Joe, so the entire Man on the Rocks team, as well as
All of the
rocks. And a number of our other players from our local shop are going to be there. There are going to be a ton of people coming from both Portland and Washington. Player cap is at 60 players, so if you're hearing this, you should get your tickets soon. It's a $50 entry fee. Little steep, but the pricing's great. The tournament, the tournament level is really high. There are a bunch of really good players. And the pricing is good, and it's such a fun environment. The organizers do such a fantastic job. This is their third event in the series. It's really looking forward to playing this one again. Also, from Cedh has just officially announced they have a team. So they have put together an official team to represent the Seattle, Washington, Pacific Northwest area. I believe there's a couple of different groups that are putting together teams for this thing, so that's really exciting, and flatteringly enough, I was invited to be a part of that. So that's my little woot woot.
Let's go.
Let's
go. Joe, edit in some clapping noises here.
Yay! It's yeah. Yes. So that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to participating in that group with a bunch of other really good comp players. But without further ado, let's not keep you, and let's get into this latest local brew here. Break down a Magic deck.
What a fantastic time. You should come on down and get a drink with us. I feel like we never we were just talking about this. We never actually like start off with the commander with these things. I feel like that kind of like sets the stage for it all. Also, this is Kristian. We've brought on Kristian before.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm back.
Welcome.
So
You're
sorry.
not such a new player anymore.
No, you're not.
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
But that was the last time we had you on, right? It was like episode 2 or 3 or something.
No, it was like 12.
Yeah, it was somewhere in the middle.
Okay, I feel like
it has been like 10.
I feel like it's been
so
long.
There's also been a couple of breaks in between, so
A couple of breaks,
yeah.
but like roughly like 10 episodes.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right,
this is your last free pass.
Anyway, Kristian, read your funny commander for the audience.
Cool. So I am playing Hidetsugu and Kairi. It is a 2 blue black for a legendary creature, Ogre Demon Dragon. It is flying. It says when Hidetsugu and Kairi enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards and put 2 from your hand back on top of your library. So ETB Brainstorm. When Hidetsugu and Kairi dies, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana cost. That's the most relevant text, obviously. And if it's an instant or sorcery, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Yeah, it's a may. You don't always do that, but yeah, it's also a 5/4 beater in the air.
Yeah, black and blue, so it's bad Yuriko.
Yeah, it's worse Yuriko even.
Trash
Worse
Yuriko,
Yuriko.
honestly.
Yeah. Why would you pay 5 mana for Yuriko that you can't ninjutsu?
Exactly. I'm never paying 5 mana
Yeah.
for Yuriko. I'm never even paying 3 mana for Yuriko.
Yeah, I'm almost paying 2 mana for Yuriko. But I guess I want to deal damage to only one player. Yeah, I guess the you want me to like break down kind of what it's about?
Yeah.
Generally, like what you're looking for is like your consistent win cons are cast your commander, kill your commander, and either tutor on top of the death trigger or tutor beforehand, and put what I've so lovingly called bomb spells on top. The deck has a little bit of variety in what you can put up there, just so it leaves a little bit of toolboxy as an option. Your main win con being Enter the Infinite, leaving you with 1 card in library. You have a couple different lines from there. You can leave Thoracle, Entomb Reanimate. You can leave Nexus of Fate. There's some fun loops there, which I'm sure we'll get into later as we break down the list. But that's your main win line. It is cast your commander, kill your commander, win the game, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll kind of like dive through, but I do like this deck a lot. I think when I first read the card, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I played against it once or twice, and like you just resolve your commander, you kill it, and like, literally you just win off a death trigger. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and
insane.
the goal is to like, I think what I had written in the singular line of the primer that's there right now is like, the goal is really just to like hit people from angles they're not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice being a really hard to deal with mechanic in that you can't really interact with a sack as a cost.
This is
true. Like you have to deal with what comes after. So either you are preemptively seeing things like, oh, they've played a Viscera Seer on the turn before, or Phyrexian Tower, or just sometimes they have 1 black mana and the sacrifice drops and suddenly you have to deal with whatever the hell's on top of the deck. Beyond that, it really is just about finding your window. It is Dimir control until you can find a good place to kind of set your commander in. And it's just a good creature. A 5/4 flyer is not something you can turn your nose up at. 2-3 turns into the game, you're taking 15 damage from this massive thing. Or you're blocking Crom, you're threatening Winota. Like, there's some really good utility just in how big the body is on this creature.
Yeah, the rate's really good. 5 mana, like you said, 5 mana for a 5/4 flyer. It was just like mostly vanilla, is pretty strong, but it also gives you like card selection, which is good. So it helps you fix, like, even if you're not comboing or something, right? You can like put it into play, draw some cards, pitch the worst cards back, and like crack a fetch land to clear your top or something. So a lot of utility on this card outside of just winning the game with a bomb spell.
Yeah, Brainstorm in the command zone is conditionally very powerful. I mean, you run a lot of, you're in black, so you're going to have top deck tutors, and being able to manipulate your top deck to be able to see them, even just like Atlas said, the classic Brainstorm.
Yeah, and run things like top.
Yeah, Brainstorm, fetch, all that stuff. Like that's solid card advantage, card selection. Really, really good. Really like it a lot.
Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes, there is one comment we do have to address first, and that is, blue and black, why are you not playing Ad Nauseam? We'll just throw this question out here real quick before the discussion.
Okay, so the idea of, I guess, like, the first thing that stops me from playing Ad Naus is just the social aspect. I will get hit. I'm already on Dimir, people are going to hit me. If they now have the idea that I'm playing Ad Naus, I'm going to get hit twice as much. But beyond that, mechanically, the way the deck functions, by having so many of these bomb spells in your list, they cost upwards of 5 mana. It throws your curve off. Even though the rest of the deck isn't that high of a curve, when you're flipping your Ad Naus, you don't want to see Enter the Infinite, period. That is 12 life
but
lost.
Then you can brainstorm it back.
So true. With how much life, because I've been getting hit the whole game, so now when I flip my ETI, I die. Which happens anyways most of the time, but at least I don't want to do it to my own Ad Naus, right? Just the functionality of the deck kind of forces Ad Naus out of the list, which is already something that I was looking to do. So it's also a decent politicking piece, like I was mentioning before.
Yeah, and just on like rough counts, you're on 10 5+ cards. Like that makes Naus really, really likely to just like
rough
chunk you,
very
blow you
rough.
up. Yeah, really, like massive. Oh, I'm gonna flip this Enter the Infinite. I have 10 life left. Oh, that's the Rise of the Eldrazi. I'm dead.
Yeah, you have
Oops.
2 12 mana cards, 1 9 mana card, another 7 mana
There's
card.
Thrix, Hullbreaker
Yeah.
Horror, Kong Sphinx.
It's big.
brutal.
It's mad. Like flipping one of those, like you just go, cool. I'm glad I drew like 3 cards at instant speed for this. Why am I playing
Yeah.
this card?
Yeah.
As much as I do like calling the deck 5 mana tribal, and I don't think it would be hard to get an Ad Naus off on somebody else's turn and just like get value out of it, I think with the type of player I am and the luck that I tend to have, it would kill me most of the time, and I'd just rather not be on the card and
reasonable.
leave room for something
Seems
higher
reasonable.
utility.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Gotta mesh to your playstyle, right? We were always talking about that. Okay, well with that, let's go over the list. As per our normal formula, we're gonna start with these creatures on Mox Field, and we'll move down the columns. All right, so figure we'll just list off some of the things that everyone knows, and if there are some more interesting cards, we can sort of like talk about why those are here.
Oh, there's a spicy one in here.
I am very excited to get further down the list, but so far we have Viscera Seer. It's a standard, it's a 1-mana sacrifice, it's a permanent, allows you to delay it, pretty standard.
So I've been having discussions with one of our players about this. Viscera Seer versus Carrion Feeder. Where do you sit on the side of the argument? Because I'm on the Carrion Feeder side of the argument personally.
Bro can't block. What do you want him to do?
It doesn't die to a Bowmasters. You can play it out early with another creature. I guess in this deck.
What do you
I'm
mean
on
it doesn't die?
Viscera
You're on 11 creatures. It's dying to every Bowmasters.
So I said that, and then I'm like, wait, never mind. It doesn't matter. Moving on.
Being able to sack something and scry ends up being a little more useful in this list just because I am on so many like top deck manipulation effects. So just having that as utility as backup is nice over the Carrion Feeder. I was on both at one point and realized the redundancy wasn't really worth it. And cutting some other cards for utility just ended up being more valuable.
Sweet. So Dothy Voidwalker, classic black staple at this point. Very good. I don't think it does anything particularly spicy in your list, really.
I mean, it's nice. There are definitely people who fumble into it, just because they're like, oh, top deck tutor's only so viable, we'll see what you're getting, and then they pitch it to Douthie, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna use this to win the game now.
Yeah, you can set something in your top later and sack your guy. Makes sense. Shredder is a looter. Turn through your library. Is a good blocker. I don't imagine
Good
that
beer.
you're on a bit of a reanimator package, so I guess discarding a creature can be useful. Bowmasters, of course,
Staple.
such an amazing card. Happy that that's in the format.
It puts in work.
It does. We have Thassa's Oracle, of course, Opposition Agent, Spell Seeker just grabs top deck tutors generally. I'm
Top deck tutors, Psych Rift, 1-mana interaction, just solid effect. It gets a lot of what I need in the
you can
list.
sacrifice it
reanimate,
to
sacrifice.
and stuff later. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. We got Consecrated Sphinx. It's a reanimator bomb. I know we talked a little bit about doing like Broodlord stuff at one point.
And I would never reanimate Kong Sphinx on turn.
Oh
Never.
my
That
God.
didn't happen literally last
Only
night.
if
That would never
only if
happen.
I have the Nature's Claim for the Animate Dead specifically.
Yeah, and only if I can tutor back and get reanimate turn 2.
Oh
Yeah.
God, that game was insane.
Solid early game reanimator target, whereas something like Hullbreaker Horror, which appears to be your other target, tends to be kind of dead early game if you don't have the rocks for it, so
Yeah.
just kind of balance you out. It's also an advantage engine, can get you back in the game, because like you said, Dimir control, right?
Mhm.
All right,
Mhm.
that brings us to
The spice.
the last two creatures. All right, we're gonna go over the first spice here, which is pretty standard in most blue decks, but Phantasmal Image has an interesting place in your deck. Do you want to elaborate on it? Yeah, you're excited about that.
I love this
Yeah,
card.
let's elaborate on why Phantasmal Image is so good in your list specifically.
So top to bottom, obviously the card is just generically really good. Being able to steal other people's value engines is great. Good card.
I would never
right?
copy a Dockside.
Me personally, I would never.
Never.
Do that. But more importantly than that, and I think what kind of makes it more unique in this list is just the fact that the legend rule exists. So if Hide is out and you cast a Phantasmal Image, there have been so many times where my opponents are like, oh, this gets Dockside, this gets this. It's not that big of a deal. He only makes 3 treasures. They let the Image resolve. I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna make a copy of Hide. Legend rule applies. I'm gonna keep the original Hide. I'm gonna let Phantasmal Image die. So now I have an enter the battlefield trigger and a death trigger for 2 mana. So I can stack them whichever way I want. So if I've already previously stacked something that's like a bomb, but not necessarily like ETI, I can use it to draw cards or whatever it is, flip that bomb spell, and then reshuffle my top. Or I have the bomb in my hand, and there's for some reason I drew it instead of being able to tutor it. I now have the option to brainstorm, put it back on top, and then use the death trigger. All at once from a ruling, right? Again, hitting from that weird uninteractable angle of like, if they don't counter the image, this is just happening. They have to deal with it.
Or
Well, yeah,
otherwise,
and-
get rid of the Hide.
Yeah, and creatures are hard to counter in general in this format, so it's just like another thing where it's like something like a clone spell or something like that, like an instant that one might play instead in this type of slot is A, it's just flexible because it's not a 2-mana copy anyone's thing, and then B, it also doesn't hit them with that other like you said, that spot where they aren't quite sure, like, oh, it's gonna get Dockside, oh, it's gonna be a Bowmasters, like, and we'll deal with it later. Yeah.
Could get literally
And
anything.
it has the flexibility to do that, but just that angle of most of the time people aren't seeing it, they're not thinking about it. and they're letting the image resolve, and at that point it's too
Oh,
late.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of it if Hidei's on the battlefield.
Well, you are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that
Yeah.
bad as long as they have a counterspell, right? There's nothing in your deck
Mhm.
that makes that a problem.
Yeah,
Which
there would never be anything.
I would never
which
run
leads us
something-
into the last creature card in your deck. So the true spice. You're playing a card called Thrix, the Sudden Storm. Now, for all you CDH players out there, I wouldn't immediately go adding this to your deck. It seems
No.
a little niche.
No. Make sure
Makes forcible uncoverable.
make sure Adna is uncounterable.
It does do that. That said, it is another 5 cost. It is a creature. We'll go over the stat line here real quick. It is blue, and 3 for a legendary creature that is an elemental giant. It is a 5/4 with flying and flash. And of course, the most relevant line of text on this card is since Dimir doesn't really get Grand Abolisher, and Malevolent Hermit is, at least in my opinion, I know we've talked about before, kind of a meh card. Like it's
alright.
not
It's
bad.
okay. It's fine.
There are better options, such as Thrix, that says spells you cast with converted mana cost 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast, and they cannot be countered.
Oh, this is a 4/5. You said 5/4. Get called on.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh.
You're right. I should just.
It's reverse.
Sorry,
It's
I'll
reverse
DC, I'll
Hidei.
DC.
Yeah, better stat line. I love the 4/5 stat line. Yeah, this card's insane. You told me about this card, and I'm like, oh, that seems really good. And then you like end step flash this guy in, untap, cast your commander, and I'm just like, oh.
Untype cast my commander for 4 mana,
4 mana,
uncounterable.
uncounterable. Have the extra mana to like play like a sack outlet or hold up a piece of interaction or
Yeah.
something. I'm just like, oh yeah. This card's legit. This card's so legit, and it hits on like the uninteractable angle really well, because the card that you flip off of Hidei's death trigger is uncounterable. So if you're
Yep.
preparing on like
Yeah.
the okay, sack outlet's online, or like we're preparing for this, like we'll deal with like the flip card. This just says, yeah, good, nice try, bucko. Like, get out of here. Like it just,
Yeah.
it's
And
insane.
that's what I really enjoy, is because like at first people were really like, oh, we just deal with the spell that comes after Hidei because then he loses his commander and that's it. And I'm like, okay, you're kind of right. So I kept like a lot of the winning hands that I would keep would have to be like, okay, bomb spell on top plus backup, right? And hope they just don't have every out. Then I kept running into the situations where they had every out, and I'm like, okay, I need to find something that's a little more defensive but still keeps people guessing, because I hate being telegraphed, which I'm sure will come up later as like part of one of the deck's weaknesses, I think. But having something like this out and be like, okay, we just interact with what comes off the top, and then they're like, oh, that's right, we can't.
Yeah.
Hidei's dead now, and he's flipping a Seagate Restoration and drawing 14 cards. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely one of those. It's also really nice because a lot of times when you see cards like this, the templating will say like non-creature spells XYZ, and like the sick thing about this card is it doesn't say that. The templating is for any spell.
It's just
It doesn't
any spell.
matter. Doesn't matter what the type is, how it was cast, anything like that. There's no mana requirement on like you have to make sure that you spent mana to cast the spell or whatever. It's as long as it is a spell that has 5 total pips or more in that top right corner, it's uncounterable as long as Thrix is in play, which just adds to that. And it has flash, so like we were talking about earlier, Joe mentioned like flash out end step, go to your turn, cast Hidei without having to secure any extra land drops, because your 5 mana commander is now uncounterable, only casts 4, which is actually a discount. And then you can still have that 1 extra like black pip to cast a Viscera Seer and sack it, or use a Culling the Weak or a Sacrifice or something to just get your guy out of there immediately and win the game.
Yeah, and I think what's great is just because we are like Dimir control, right? That I say it every time I play this list. I can have 5 mana pass and just be like, okay, yeah, I did have to use my interaction this turn. That sucks. I can't cast Thrix, but I used my interaction. Land, go. Thrix on end step, and now I'm open again, right? Because nobody played anything to try and win the game at that point. We've successfully stopped them, and so I can just feel confident in being able to like, okay, I can land pass here, still have a winning play on my turn, and be able to keep up defense.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other interesting things is like your deck is built around get to 5 mana so you can cast your commander, right? And so Thrix gives you that discount on your commander, but also other cards like Consecrated Sphinx is 6, but with a Thrix in play, gets you to that 5 mana. Yeah, where like
5
the
mana.
deck just has to get to 5 mana. It's like
Yeah.
ad nauseum, but like a little slower kind of. A little bit more, I want to say resilient, but it just different. And the Hullbreaker
Yeah,
Horror.
and then my
only costs
Kong Sphinx is
6.
uncounterable. They have to remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's-
good.
yeah.
Also, It's a 5. It's I almost did the same thing you did. It's
It
a
is,
4/5.
yeah.
It's a
Big
4/5
spirit.
flyer. This eats everything and swings into
Yep.
nearly everything.
Yeah,
Like,
Crom
it is,
doesn't matter. Blocks
it's
consecrate
so
sphinxes.
so
Yep.
massive.
Please throw your wood note at me. I will be flashing out my Thrix.
Do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I promise. I will kill it. I will block it.
You've kept me under rule of law. I'll be playing my creatures on your turn.
Jesus. I guess the last really notable interaction for this card is Force of Will. Cost it at 5 mana, but you can cast it for literally free. This card does make forces uncounterable, like we mentioned earlier.
Which is ridiculous. That's such a ridiculous statement. My uncounterable force of will.
Yeah, you thought you had to play Veil
It
of Summer
came
for
up.
that.
Somebody stole my Thrix and had an uncounterable force of will to stop somebody's
That's
game.
disgusting.
Yeah, it always seems irrelevant. It's like, oh, it's a side subject, and then suddenly it happens, and you're like, oh, this is we're here
this
now.
niche scenario matters. You have to think these through. It's like I'm always talking about like the weird little like niche stuff you can do with Displacer Kitten or like stunt level copying Cloud of Fairies and things like that. And it matters. It matters. I won a game with that reason. It matters. Brainstorm, theory craft, find the weird lines in the strange niche tech and be like, oh, this is something I have to be aware of. And then your opponents, it comes up to your opponents, they're like, never even considered it. Yeah.
That uninteractable angle, I think, is just like the key point of the deck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
All
just attack on such a weird access. All right.
Yeah. Let's speaking about the attack spells, let's move into some sorceries here.
Yeah.
All right. So we got some pretty standard stuff. We got Imperial Seal. We mentioned Reanimator sub-themes. So we have Reanimate, Demonic Tutor, DI, Diabolical Intent, Toxic Deluge. Pretty good in your list. Kills your commander, clears the board, keeps you alive. Good card, good card. I think I mentioned Imperial Seal. We got Cataxian Probe, free card draw, information gain. This is really where things start to get interesting. So first spell that I want to mention is Cabal Therapy.
This card's so gas. This card's I'm so glad you're on this tech. So Xe for a while was playing Cabal Therapy in Cormella, and as soon as they told me they were doing that, I'm like, that's incredible. That's insane. Like, it's just free information and you get sick advantage off it by sacking your commander. It's so good. I love it.
Yes, yeah, the card's gas. For anyone who's unaware of what this card is, it's a staple in Legacy decks for a while. I'm not sure that it still sees much play. I'm not super familiar with Legacy, so don't flame me for being wrong. But Cabal Therapy, 1 black for a sorcery. Once it resolves, you name a non-land card. Target player reveals their hand and discards all cards with that name. And then it has flashback, sacrifice a creature. So the idea is you can name a card, get some information like Joe said, and then, but most importantly, it's a free flashback to sack your command. I'm sure you have more insights on why this card's so good.
Even just as my main win con is a combo with my commander. So getting that information and being like, okay, this is how they can play around me. Even if I say the wrong card, sometimes just naming Force of Will is great because you can pitch their Force of Will. Or if they don't have it, you get to look at their hand and be like, okay, they're sitting on an endurance, so I can't go for whatever like specific line, whether it be a fast circle line or whatever it is, or I need to find a way around it, make sure I have backup. Like just keeping that information is so useful. And like running something like Cataxian Probe, this is a 1/2, right? You get probe somebody, like, okay, I know what you have, I'm now going to pitch it.
Yep, cast the Cabal Therapy, name the card, and do it again the second time. Yeah.
You did a sick play the other day. Like, you're on so many top deck tutors. Or, like, I imagine you get into weird scenarios where, like, you put 2 back and, like, you're able to get probe the thing that you want to draw back and leave your bomb spell as your second card from the top. It's just, it's really good. It's really solid top deck manipulation. It's deck thinning. It's information. It's just good. It's really, really solid.
Yeah, these 2 cards I just love as a pair.
It's so good. It's so good.
All right, moving on to some more interesting spells. Scheming Symmetry, not a card you see in every CDH list. It's like that budget gradient for a lot of decks where you're either in mono black like Crick or something, and the opponents don't get a turn, so it doesn't matter, or you're that's just literal free vampiric tutor, or you're doing something to abuse it with like an oppo agent or something. In this list, it's just another top deck tutor. I guess you can opt with it as well to just kind of steal something. But yeah.
Specifically in tournament settings, I do like it. Just because like we were playing a game, I'm like out of the game at this point. I've lost my win attempt, but I'm sitting on a Scheming Symmetry. I'm able to politic my way into, because it's target players, it doesn't have to be yourself. So giving 2 of your opponents a top deck tutor in order to stop another player from winning in order to drag our game out, force it into a draw. I think it's just backup if you have
you
it.
did that to me. You're like, all right, I have nothing I can do. My entire library has been exiled in a Thoracle attempt, but I'm going to target the Tyan player and the mono green guys. You guys are going to go get this card and this card to answer the threat that I was trying to present. Yeah,
I didn't realize
it has backup utility.
Yeah, I
Very
didn't realize
solid
it was
card.
target players until you'd
it's
brought
target
them
players.
up. Because I always figured it like it's yourself and your opponent to minimize the drawback.
No,
Generally, that's what it
Yeah.
is, right? Like, you can do that. Like, that's the most common utility of it. But giving 2 other people tutors, even like your op is out, I'm gonna Scheming Symmetry 2 other people, grab your Thoracle, your Consult, win the game. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a sweet card. I love the fact that you get to play something that's like so just people see it and they're like, oh, this is a budget replacement for like Imperial Seal or whatever. It's like, no, this is an intentional decision. Because I know we talked about like replacing with Personal Tutor and stuff before, and you said no, I like with card players you're sitting on.
Yeah, and it's just too narrow, like Personal Tutor specifically, like it's only grabbing win cons at that point. And it comes up again, but like that idea of I don't like telegraphing. So if I am Scheming Symmetry, I like being able to be flexible and grab something that maybe isn't going to win me the game in that moment, but not have to tell you.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
We mentioned some other tutors. All right. Seagate Restoration, classic bomb spell. Expropriate, another great bomb spell. 9 damage and take an extra turn and steal something from everybody. Maybe get another extra turn, depends. And then, of course, you got Enter the Infinite, which is literally just reads win the game on it in this deck. You're casting it for free. It's always pretty good.
Free.
Drawing your whole
Sometimes instant
library.
speed too.
Sometimes at instant speed. Hide does break timing
Sometimes
restrictions if we
at
didn't
instant
mention that before.
Yeah. It forces the cast.
Yep. And then this last one here, a newer card called Rise of the Eldrazi. It's another 12 cost bomb. It's colorless, and 9 generic for a sorcery. This spell cannot be countered. You destroy a target permanent. Can hit lands, notably. You can pop Gaia's Cradles and things like that. It says target player draws 4 cards, and it takes an extra turn for specifically you, and then you exile Rise. So it's kind of like Expropriate adjacent almost, but it has additional utility using that cast it instant speed effect, because you were telling me you're so excited because it can force draw a Thoracle player to death. Someone's trying to win the game and exile their whole library, and they will be drawing 4 cards.
You cannot counter
They will be
this.
drawing 4 cards. You take the next turn and you win the game.
Yeah, and then it pops the most problematic stack speeds at the same time. Yeah. The
Mhm.
card is really good, and the art goes crazy.
The art does go really.
Love that art.
The art
Yeah.
does
Love
go
that.
crazy. No, I really
Right.
like this as like a weird mid piece. Like, okay, I can get a Hide trigger off, and like it's decent. It might win me the game, but also it's kind of just a good value play.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it cannot be countered. That's really strong.
It's nuts. And that effect has come up because we were the last major we played at our local shop. I went to flip a spell and they specifically said we'll counter what comes after, and I flipped the spell and they had no choice. The Rise of the Eldrazi was resolved.
The Eldrazi will rise up.
Yeah. And what's great is, like, in that case, there was no real stack pieces stopping me, and I had already killed Hide. Like, there was nothing really holding me back. But I had to play super patient on a previous player's turn because they resolved an Omniscience, and I'm sitting on a Force of Will. I know I have a win on my turn with this Rise of the Eldrazi because I just need 1 more card and a tutor, and I'm fine. And I'm debating whether or not I should use this Force of Will on the Omniscience or whatever comes after. And as the player was playing before, I'm like, okay, I think I can pace myself here. So I'm watching them. I let them resolve the Omniscience. Like, okay, this is going to be a problem later if I can't win on my turn. I'm still sitting on Force. I can still counter whatever comes after the Omniscience. So I'm like patiently watching them drop things into play. And I'm like, this is not a big deal. They had nothing in their hand. So when this Rise flips, I'm like, okay, God forbid I flub this turn or somebody stops me. I'm shooting that Omniscience.
100%.
Absolutely.
You are now also out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a super flexible card. I really, really like it. Because you used to be running Peer in the slot, right? When we were tinkering with Broodline
Yes.
lines and things like that before previously.
Mhm.
But this card just so good. So good.
And back to that politicking aspect of just being able to be like, I'm not on Peer, I'm not on Nas, I'm not on Citadel. The only life loss spell I am on will be like the One Ring.
Yeah, everything else doesn't really abuse your life tool. I mean, Gitaxian Probe, I
Mhm.
guess, but that's not really abuse. It just kind of uses it for
Deluge.
Yeah,
one
Deluge,
It's
thing.
like these
yeah.
are like one-time use things that most players in these colors are using
Yeah,
anyway.
it doesn't really matter.
So I'm no longer getting hit abnormally.
Yes.
I'm just getting Demir player.
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
Yeah.
we're gonna get you. Yeah. So last spell from the sorcery section. This one's kind of interesting. I wouldn't really call it a bomb, but it is definitely a card I've seen you tutor for to resolve with a Hide trigger multiple times. It's Bribery. It's a little bit older card. It used to be considered a commander staple back in the days of Emrakul. when the 15 mana Emrakul was legal. This card is actually the reason that card got banned.
Really?
Yes, because everyone was playing Emrakul, and which meant everyone was also playing Bribery, so they could be playing your opponent's Emrakuls. Because the card is blue, and 3 for a sorcery that allows you to search target opponent's library for any creature card and put it straight into play under your control, and then that player shuffles.
Yep. It is fantastic toolbox. Like when we are playing Dimir Control, when we're hitting this point of like, okay, the game has slowed down. The Drannith isn't in play, so I can still sack Hide, but I know I can't go for a win attempt. This card is just pure flexibility. And that's what I love about it, because so many times I feel like I can be shoehorned into like my win condition and be like, okay, everyone knows how to beat an ETI. I need to find another way out of this, right? So having something that is just pure toolbox is so nice. It goes everywhere from being your opponent's Grand Abolisher. You couldn't get Thrix out, and you do know you have the win if you resolve another spell on your turn. Cool, I'm going to take Grand Abolisher, I'm going to cast a Thorncoil and win, right? It is your opponent's dockside, and these are all like positive upsides, but it also plays a really good defensive mechanic. There have been multiple times where I flip a Bribery, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take your stacks piece to stop this player.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to let the Bribery resolve, right? They let the Bribery go off, you take their stacks piece, and now you're the one holding the table hostage, right? And you're back in control of the game. You're back in a position where you're not the problem, but you're the reason the game is where it is, and now you're able to find your proper window and win when you
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I really like this card. It's, like you said, flexible. I love the fact that it is a bomb spell. It's something you're going to cheat frequently, mostly if for no other reason than to break timing restrictions. It's a spell that players may or may not counter based upon what other decks are sitting at the table, because they're more scared of introducing other things to play. Love that it can be win conditions from other people's decks. We were talking about like Concealed Oracles. You were playing a game just the other day where you gained control of an opponent's Malcolm, so you Bribery their Glinthorn Buccaneer and were able to win the game. There's the weird aspect where like it gets around opposition agents, so you can tutor out things that way. But it's also just 5 mana, so it's a really attainable cast in a deck that's designed to cast sorcery speed 5 mana spells.
It also gets Thrixed.
It gets Thrixed.
Do be getting Thrixed. You can make it uncounterable.
Yeah, no, that
is uncounterable and 4 mana.
And 4 mana.
I really like Bribery in your list a lot, because it lets you branch out from your color pie really, really well, which is something that I think Dimir really wants to be able to do, because like you said, like your win conditions are like pretty known. Like you're gonna Thorkel at some point, so like the Thorkel is gonna be known. You have access to Grand Abolisher. You're not playing any of like the weird like artifact like Defense Grid or Conqueror's Flail or anything like that. So being able to just turn the corner, get a Grand Abolisher, and just go for your win like protected with counterspell backup, massive, just absolutely massive. And the timing restriction, fantastic, love it. You're going for your Brain Freeze is on the stack. Cool. I'm gonna sack Hide, get Bribery. I'm gonna steal someone else's Dalthy. We'll let the Brain Freeze resolve now. Goodbye.
Yeah,
and I think something that like I think I need to get used to, and I was thinking about like last night, is forcing instant speed stuff with this, like leaving 1 mana open for the sacrifice in my hand and knowing Bribery's on top, and someone's like, okay, I'm gonna detutor. Like, okay, I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna kill Hide, cast a Bribery. I'm gonna take what you were tutoring for.
Or Zappo them.
It's as a big proponent of the flash mechanic over here. Breaking timing restrictions on anything is really good, and Bribery basically just says, cast spell in target opponent's library. Also, it has flash.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all the card does.
Also, it
does everything.
Yeah, I love that idea. Like, you have 9 Brain Freeze copies on the stack target. They're all targeting yourself. Great. In response, break timing restrictions on Bribery. Put my opponent's Dalthy into play.
Or like Drannith or like whatever.
Something. Yeah, you just lock them down and.
You don't have access to your Oppo, it's their Oppo.
Yeah.
Like
from an angle they were not expecting. Once again, just so good. Card does exactly the game.
He has 1 mana. He can't opposition agent me. What's he gonna do? Dark Red Oppo, and he has 1 card in hand. Cool, it's sacrifice. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
That brings us through sorceries.
All right, time for the instants.
Instant pile.
Yeah.
28 of them.
Pretty standard as we kind of like walk through this. We got, Pact, Offer, Brainstorm. It's pretty good. We want a redundant copy with Hide.
Yeah. There are times where you draw into your tutors, or you draw into what you would normally be tutoring for, and you just need a way to restack the top. But it's not so common of an effect that I'm on things like Scroll Rack or anything like that. Like Brainstorm is enough. It's tutorable. It gets grabbed by a lot of other things. It's just worth
for sure. Chain of Vapor, Dark Ritual, Consultation, Entomb. We mentioned we're on reanimation, so putting things into the yard, pretty sick.
You can also put your Cabal
Put your
Therapy
Cabal
into the
Therapy
yard.
into the yard. Like Flusterstorm, March, Misstep, Mystical Tutor, Rapid Hybridization. I really like the choice here because it kills Hide.
Yep.
Massive.
That is
massive.
Yeah.
Sacrifice we've mentioned, and we'll kind of talk about that a bit. Swan Song, Vamp Tutor, pretty stock, pretty standard for decent amount of our 0 and 1 costs. There are some weirdo cards. Culling the Weak, did I mention Culling the Weak? Good card here. Instant speed sack outlet. Same thing with Sacrifice, making 5 mana or whatever is really good. Forcing through those sacrifice effects at instant speed, really solid. Basically uncounterable Hide trigger. You can't interact with it because it's cost to get these onto the stack. I specifically this is a sick card that I really like that you're on. Malakir Rebirth. One of the lesser played MDFCs. This is one of the ones that enters tapped. It's the uncommon. You choose target creature, you lose 2 life, and until end of turn, that creature gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Why?
Well, a couple different reasons. Number one, I like being on 28 lands. So first of all, luck has always been bad for me. I gotta have that 28th land. There's been so many times where this card it enters tapped and is still being valuable for me. But beyond that, when I'm not mana screwed, having a repeatable ETB effect with my commander, even though it can be scary if I use it at the wrong time, it can definitely be useful to restack and then re-kill. Because not having to spend another mana post this to reanimate my commander or whatever I'm looking to do, it gives me a second win attempt.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. You have done silly things with Malakir Rebirth. You have a commander that has an ETB and a death trigger. This feels like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and beyond that, it's all comes back to flexibility. Being able to use this on there's a stacks piece hosing an opponent and not me, and I need it to stick around because if not, they're gonna win the turn. My Malakir Rebirth turns into that thing's not dying.
Yeah.
Oh, it is target creature. That's actually really.
It is target creature.
Yeah. So it does kind of the saw in half thing where you can protect someone else's stacks piece if someone's trying to specifically kill it. Yeah, solid. I don't think there was anything I missed that really needs to be going over. Mystical Tutor, Vamp Tutor, I feel are very premium here because it fetches all of your bombs. Top deck tutors are just insane here. They just simply are.
Yeah, the play pattern.
There's a couple cards I definitely think, big philosophy for me for any piece of removal. As I look at cards like Dismember, my philosophy with it, even when I was building the deck, and Alice has heard me say this a bunch, but just any piece of removal I'm running. If it's a death, it needs to be able to kill my commander and the opponent. It's why I'm not on a lot of exile effects that are in black, because I just prefer having the flexibility. If I draw this card, I want to see it either kill the Drannith or kill my commander and win me the game.
Yeah, I do think jumping back just half a step to the tutors.
Yeah, that's fine.
The mystical tutors, a really important play pattern you should mention for all of the people listening is killing your commander first. Right? I've seen you do that so many times. Yeah, so you're killing your commander first, putting the death trigger on the stack, and then
you hold priority mystical tutor.
Put your thing on top afterwards, because even then it's not even.
It's that idea of being what's unpredictable, not telegraphing is hard,
because your trigger's already there. They just have to have an answer for the mystical tutor at that point. So.
Yep. You sit there, the commander's been sticking around for 5 games, so people are okay, or 5 turns. They're we have no reason to do anything about this right now. It's fine. He hasn't manipulated his top, and you're okay, I'm gonna kill it. Hold priority mystical tutor. Now there's going to be something on top. Kill the tutor. Or just mind gaming. I've already put something on top. Go ahead, counter the mystical tutor. I could grab something better with it, but there's still a bomb sitting on top of that.
That's where I was going to jump in is you can double up exactly like you said. You double up on what it is. It's essentially functioning as bait for the most part. Cool. I can either exactly as you said. It does so much. I love it. It's really sick. All right. Jumping up to the 2 CMCs. Nothing crazy here. We got Psych Rift, Limb Duel's Vault, Tainted Pact. Tainted Pact, Psych Rift, pretty just good spells, good cards. Tainted Pact, we're on Thoracle, so does that.
And beyond that, I think the card is just
you just play it.
It's 2 mana tutor.
If you're in black, you just play it. Your mana base is already going to be Tainted Pacted, even if you're in mono black, you can still Tainted Pact your mana base. Limb Duel's Vault, It's a tutor. It stacks your deck. Nothing more I think needs to be said on that, right?
Nope, pretty straightforward.
Yep, pretty straightforward.
It is a top deck tutor. You just have to pay a lot of life for it. Pitch the force, though. So
Does pitch the force. That is critical.
Pitches to Chroma.
Pitches to Chroma.
ETI.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is pretty good. All right. We mentioned Dismember, Fierce Guardianship, Force Negation, standard stuff. Talk to me about Saw in Half.
I love this card so much, just because it does so much on resolution. Being able to make use of things like Fierce Guardianship, we were debating that card at first just because most of the time your commander's dead when you're defending whatever you're doing. But as a control list, it's good to have around. Beyond that, cards that kill Hide on resolution need to be protected. So Fierce Guardianship puts another use for that card. But when Saw in Half resolves, similar to Fimage, you're forcing a legend rule. So Hide is going to die once from the Saw in Half, like the initial resolution. You're going to make a copy. You keep one of the Hide, you keep one of the copies around. You get another death trigger and another enter from that copy entering. So you get one from both of them. You get 2 death triggers. So you can kind of just make a trigger sandwich.
Yep.
However is useful for that situation.
Important to note, because all this is happening at the same time, because state-based effects occur before anything can be done, right? And so even though it's occurring during the after the resolution of the spell, it's still occurring. So that's just important to note for our listeners.
Yeah, you now get to kind of decide what direction you're going with. Oftentimes, like if it's something like a Rise of the Eldrazi on top, it won't draw me my deck. So I'll put death trigger, enter the battlefield trigger, death trigger, right? So we get that first flip, draw our 4 cards. We know we're going to take another turn, and now we get to see 5 more cards, right? Because it's the initial 3 and then 2 more after it, or 1 more after. It's 4 cards, whatever that number is, right? You get to see a couple more cards and then restack. Maybe you've seen another bomb spell and you have another death trigger to go off, right? You can throw that back on top, or just a value piece. Free Dark Ritual is pretty great. Throw a Dark Rit back on top. Now I have 3 more black mana to work with on this turn.
For the top picture that you drew to weave it in through everything.
Yep. So it just provides like this insane amount of value and being so flexible, right? If it is an ETI, right? Like you already know what's on top. You can't be putting the enter the battlefield triggers underneath it. You just put them on top, right? So you get to cycle, see a few more cards. Maybe it's counter magic to protect that ETI that's coming, right? You have the option of seeing more cards before anything else goes off, and then you can resolve your death triggers.
Yeah, no, Saw in Half just makes a lot of sense. It's so huge. I'm a big fan of any list that can make use of Saw in Half to any degree, because like even when you look outside like the utility with your commander, like making more Viscera Seers if you feel like they're being threatened, like really solid. You're always going to be able to maintain having a sack outlet online through creatures. 2 Ledger Shredders, great. Bowmasters, great. Thoracle, it re-triggers the ETBs, fantastic. Protects opposition agent, like it does everything. Make 2 Consecrated Sphinx, you won the game. Like you don't need to do anything else. You just got 2 Consecrated Sphinxes. Like it's insane. Like 2 Hullbreaker, like every single hit in your creature base is just with the exception of Fimage, but that's fine. Fimage has already done its job because it's already a copy of Hide. Like it's died. It's in the graveyard. We don't care about it. No, it's super good. And then I skipped over this one intentionally because I know it's a crazy card. Corpse Dance. For those that have been uninitiated with it, Corpse Dance is one of 2 reanimation spells that are commonly played in the game that care about Graveyard Order. So this is an instant for 2 and a black. It's got buyback 2, and it says put the top creature of your graveyard into the battlefield. It gains haste and exiles at the beginning of the next end step. Why are we playing Corpse Dance?
A couple different reasons. Number one, an extra reanimation spell to keep something around for a turn is just kind of nice. It's instant speed, so instant speed reanimation is great. And I think more importantly to the list, it is part of a Nexus of Fate loop that you can use to combo. So with Hide, a sack outlet, and infinite mana, which is part of the reason you have your Hullbreaker around, you are able to infinitely sack and reanimate Hide, looping the top card of your library, in this case being a Nexus of Fate. So every time you go to cast it, which isn't about the turns, which I get so often from people at my table. They're like, oh, it's a turns deck. There are a couple turn spells, but generally, I'm not taking infinite turns. The Nexus of Fate is not going to result, like I'm not going to move to my next turn because I'll have 1 card left in library and a ton of enter the battlefield triggers. It is making use of that first half of Hide's text. You are dealing 7 damage to a player every time you're flipping that Nexus of Fate. and you're able to repeatedly do this until the table's dead.
Yeah, no, I think for all the animation, this one makes the most sense. I don't necessarily think we would need like a shallow grave, just because like the added utility of it being a win con is the reason why Corpse Stance is so good. Commonly, you'll loop a dockside with it, you'll loop something crazy with it. We're looping our commander, we're looping the crazy thing, like we're doing the thing.
And I mean, if somebody else has a dockside, my image becomes
exactly. Like if you're
a loopable
if you're
dockside.
able to stack your creature deaths in such a way, like you can set up your graveyard for just like, oh cool, there's a board wipe out, cool, all my creatures are died, I'm going to choose the order in which they go to the graveyard. Fimage is going to be my top creature, I'm going to reanimate the Fimage once someone's rebuilt or something. Now I'm back in the game too. Super good.
Yep.
Super good. Rounding out our instant, Mindbreak, Trap, Force of Will, good counter spells. We're a control deck, we like these things. Mention Nexus of Fate, bomb spell, combo piece, win con, value,
Top deck reshuffler. Yeah.
Anything like critical that we're missing on Nexus of Fate that we hadn't like already covered or briefly went through?
I mean, that really is it. Like, there has been times where like I know I'm top deck locked after like a brainstorm or something, and I'll be sitting on a ledger shredder and I've pitched it to Fimage just so I can reshuffle my top. It's just solid card. It's a good card in the deck. It's part of the combo. It's also just a turn spell to flip off Hide.
All right. Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. It's again more utility for our bomb spells. Like if we just need a straightforward turn spell, it's the best one to run. All right. Atlas. What do we got cooking in the artifact department?
The artifact department?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you. Well, I'm gonna go down because it starts with probably my favorite artifact at this point is the One Ring.
This card. I love this card.
Need we say more? This card is great. I love this card.
Good.
Every time I cast this card, I get feelings of power, which I think is exactly what they intended when they designed it. It's busted beyond all reason. Say less.
Funniest thing I saw the other day, someone posted on my Twitter, sorry, my X.
Thank you.
Yeah, my bad. They're like, I haven't seen the One Ring played in EDH. Is this card any good?
No,
buddy.
honestly,
And
bad
then-
if you're not playing 4 copies.
Every single like comment was like, "What's wrong with you? Where do you play EDH? I want to go play there." Like,
Back in the day,
Bring me to the world before the One Ring ruined everything.
yeah.
they have like pre-modern as a format. They're gonna have pre-One Ring as a commander format.
Pre Lord of the Rings. Oh my god.
Honestly, what a time to be alive.
TTOR.
I long for. Can we just like, as much as like the cards from the set, we should probably just like everything before Lord of the Rings, everything after Lord of the Rings. Like that set just doesn't exist. You guys,
Free Bowmaster's
right?
life.
Yeah. Oh my god. Brief tangent, but did you guys see the gift boxes for the Lord of the Rings set, like the art panel cards or whatever?
There's another one.
There are 5 of them that were
What?
leaked. There's Aragorn. These are the gift boxes for the holiday bundles.
The new set.
Yeah, like the Battle of whatever, Pelennor, like something, I don't know. But anyways, they have these boxes that are.
This guy loves Lord of the Rings.
Hey man, I'm just trying to remember my product title, so when I search Google, I can find it to order a copy of these things. Dude, they're so dumb. There's this green, one green instant with split second. It's Legolas's something or other. Legolas's bullshit
win the
era that
game.
untapped
Yeah.
shit. I don't know.
Like
It's like-
bullshit.
It's it's split second, 1 mana, untapped target creature. It gains hexproof and like I think it gains another ability too. So that's
Only good in Yeva.
honestly terrible
Only
in
good in
every
Yeva.
single deck except mono green, right? Yeah, right? Yeah. No, bro, the card's so dumb. So there's that one. There's also some other random stuff, like there's some weird creature that comes from, I think it's the Aragorn box or something, that's like allows you to go find artifacts or equipments or something and dump them into play. Somebody was talking about it comboing with Helm of the Host somehow.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
No, I know
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
That card's stupid. There is a new like viable Bant commander, which is kind of neat because Galadriel got a new printing. She's Bant and then 2 generic for like a 4/4, and then she has 3 abilities. It's a trigger that occurs every time any creature enters the battlefield, including tokens, which is kind of wild. You have to choose one of the 3 modes, and that hasn't been chosen yet this turn, so it doesn't exhaust her permanently. It's just that turn. So you can do like, it's like make 3 green, or scry 2, then draw a card, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control or something. So that's kind of busted. And then of course the 2 cards that like everyone I know, aside from Lego Lost, have really been popping off about, where there's some blue card that has blue and 2 for a sorcery, and it returns target permanent and all permanents, or target non-land permanent and all permanents with the same CMC to their owner's hands, and it has replicate for a blue.
Wait,
so
what?
You can choose a new value. Yeah,
Wait,
or
what?
choose a new target. Yeah, it's wild. For blue 2, and then maybe even more, you can hit 2 things and bounce all cards that share a CMC to their owner's hand. And then, of course, the last one that I'm really hyped about is Galadriel's Dismissal. It's white for an instant to phase out target creature, or you can kick it for white and 2. So it's 4 mana, it's white 2, and you phase out all creatures target player controls.
That card's silly.
Fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced.
Wizards really going all in on the pay-to-win strategy lately.
Legolas's quick reflex.
No, I'm
Legolas is
pretty
bullshit.
sure I said the title correctly.
Yeah.
And the extra ability it gets is when this creature becomes tapped, it deals damage equal to its
fucking-
power to up to 1
Right.
Oh
target
yeah, you're
creature.
right. Fair and
So
reasonable.
it's removal on a
Fair
stick.
and reasonable.
Yeah. So you attack, kill a creature, and then attack.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
It deals damage. It doesn't fight.
It doesn't fight. It deals damage, and it retains the
it
ability.
deals
It
damage.
retains the ability.
Yup.
So like, if
It's
you
every
untap it
time it
multiple
gets
times,
tapped.
you can shoot multiple. Yeah, Legolas
I'm
is
going to
bullshit.
cast
I
this on
do believe that
Pikachu
is the title.
so fast.
Anyways, sorry to detract from your black blue deck,
Oh,
but
go
all
on.
right. So moving on, the One Ring, very good card. We hate Lord of the Rings. Down in the 3 mana slot, Astronaut's Altar. A little bit of an interesting build decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, Infinity with a ham sandwich. That's what this card reads. It's been a staple in a lot of comp decks back in the day, but you're choosing to play it even now, and you're not like on a token strategy or anything like super consistently. It's just another sacrifice outlet for your boy.
It also pays for command tax.
It does pay for command tax.
2 colorless does pay for command tax, so a sack and reanimate if I'm sitting on 5 mana and Hide's been around. Like a sack and recast, which is really useful. So as much as like Phyrexian Altar is the one that makes color mana.
Yeah.
As much as I think that would be useful, I think it's not worth running both, and this provides too much on its own.
Fair.
It pays for Flusterstorms, like something that I've used that before, right? There's been like a Flusterstorm war, and like, okay, I'm gonna sack my Viscerus here to it because I already have a sack outlet. I'm gonna pay for 2 of your Flusterstorms and win the Flusterstorm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. That Wishclaw Talisman, standard. You got a bunch of mana rocks, talismans, Felwar Stone, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Vault, Opal, Lotus, all that kind of like you'd expect to see them, especially in Dimir where you're missing ramp type stuff. And then Sensei's Top is a little more spicy include. We were talking about top deck manipulation, just good, right?
Yeah.
Just generic.
Yeah, it's come up a couple times where like even just gold fishing, I'll keep like 1 land top, like 1 land top and a rock maybe. Look at the top few. There's a land there. Cool, we're good. Or even then, it's like, oh, there's a bomb spell in there. I just cast Hide. Okay, I'm gonna reshuffle.
Yeah.
As someone who has kept many a hand of turn 1 top rock and just this is my game plan. We're gonna find something. Sometimes just get you there.
Yep. And then we moved on to enchantments because that was all of our artifacts. They're mostly just ramp aside from the random.
Very standard.
Yeah, nothing super interesting. Once again, pretty standard. Mystic Remora, Animate Dead, Necromancy, Ristic, and then of course Address Down. All just like basic enchantment staples. You expect to see them in a lot of lists with this kind of like core game plan at this point, especially Animate Dead and a Reanimator strat. Pretty standard. Necromancy, notable because it's an instant, so you can like recur Hide and then it'll sack during cleanup, so you get 2 death triggers there. Kind of neat.
Notably, it takes your opponent's Skyclave apparitions.
Notably. Seen you do that play once or twice.
I've done that.
Yeah, I've seen you.
I've stolen Skyclave twice. Love that. Love
Super
that card.
great. Then that leaves us all the lands. We've covered most of the rest of the deck. Long story short, it's a Tainted Back mana base. Nothing super duper interesting here. Cavern of Souls. What's your usual cavern name, actually? It's not Ogre. We know that for sure.
I know what it is.
It is honestly on the chopping block.
Oh, really?
It's pretty close to being cut because it's one of 2 things. Either it makes mana for Hide, because Hide now only has unique typing. It was in there from when I was still on Broodlord.
Right, you can name Dragon, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be either Ogre, Demon Dragon, or if I'm sitting on a Thrix, it'll be Giant, just so
Your
I can have
uncounter
my
spell
Thrix be
gets
uncounterable.
uncounterable. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Which
do
is
love that. I
pretty-
love that line. I really do.
So the only reason I haven't cut it up till this point is because it can do that.
Yeah.
It's solid enough utility.
Yeah, it's a fine card. I think personally, I see where you're coming from though. I'd probably cut it for a land that can produce a colored pip. I think most of the time Thrix having flash and being a big beefy creature is enough to make it uncounterable anyways.
Leaves it fairly
Yeah.
Yeah,
uncounterable.
or like it.
And people don't know what it does, which is they usually let it resolve.
Yeah.
That's true.
People don't play out of the place of fear enough. I see a card, I don't know what it does, I'm countering the shit out of it.
Mhm.
If I can't tell you why that card's in your deck, I'm either killing it or countering it. I don't care what you tell me.
Yeah.
Oh no, my
I think Thrix needs ward.
my Jake.
What?
No,
No, stop that!
What do you
Don't say
know?
that.
I think it needs ward.
No.
It's what? It's like 50 cents. It needs
Yeah,
it.
you're right. We need to introduce more additional ward costs into the game.
Yeah, I think it should be like ward 2, sack a legendary creature. I think
Yeah,
it'd be
all of
great.
those stapled together. Yeah, I'm sure it'd be fine.
Yeah,
Nothing
both of
can
them.
possibly go
Ward 2
wrong with a ward
sacrifice legend.
trigger.
You're smoking.
Yeah, because then
Smoke
I can
crack.
target Thrix with something and then kill Hide.
Very cool.
Very standard mana base for the most part. Nothing crazy. We're on the Otawara, obviously. We're on some of the fun utility lands. We're on Cabal Pit. We're on Cephalid Coliseum. Make use of the Tainted Pack mana base. These are just going to be good cards.
Yep.
We're on
Phyrexian.
Tower.
That's probably the spiciest to include. That and Takanuma.
Yeah, that and Takanuma are going to be the spiciest includes. From my eye, everything else is just mana.
Is there a special reason for Takanuma?
I mean, Phyrexian Tower.
Is there a special reason for Takanuma?
It also just
Pulse.
puts a card back into
Yeah.
my hand. It's nice. It provides value in a monotainted pack.
Fair enough.
It doesn't come in
Yeah.
tapped.
Okay.
Produces
Yeah. What
Yeah,
else can you say?
it
I
looks
think
pretty.
Takanuma is always like just fine. It's all right. It sometimes comes up, but it's just you're playing a Tainted Pack mana base, so you just play it.
It doesn't hurt as bad to play it like Otawara does. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's not as bad. It basically is just another swamp in the list, and then if it needs to, it can provide good utility.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's just about all the cards to cover. Okay, so let's talk about get into the conversation here, analysis. Why should anybody play this list over like something that
Over
goes
Yuriko, I
faster?
hear that list is really good.
I
Why
do
should I play
think
this
Yuriko's
list?
a pretty good list, yeah.
I think Yuriko tends to be. I guess it's not dogging on Yuriko. I think it's just built for a different play style. Yuriko players aren't necessarily like. It's not a very control-y game plan, which is not something I enjoy. I enjoy controlling the table and making the game my pace. Yuriko definitely puts a timer on the game, which I think is its own meritable thing. But beyond that, I just really enjoy the tempo and the way this works. Hitting from that uninteractable angle. You know, we see a lot of things with Yuriko's. Like, Yuriko's been around a very long time. Everybody knows how to deal with Yuriko. Like, oh, pre-combat, I'm going to kill Yuriko. Cool. Or when it attacks or whatever. Like, they don't have mana to ninjutsu it back in, whatever it is. They've already declared their attackers. So being able to hit from that unapproachable angle, and it lets you run some of these cards that I do think are a bit more fun. There is definitely like a little bit of a giddy aspect that comes to casting a Thrix on your opponent's turn. You know, because they are just expecting worse Yuriko at some point. Like, why else are you playing Dimir than to just shove at the Oracle? Oh, because you could put the big giant. You could put him on your field and he makes everything cheaper. You know? The Stonk's giant. It adds like this little bit of flexibility that I think decks like Yuriko don't give you. You know, you get to run cards like Bribery, which you're not going to see in a Yuriko list. Okay, I guess it flips for 5 in Yuriko, but you're not really casting a Bribery at any point. So it gives you the utility of a lot of those cards. I really enjoy it, and like I wrote it in that one line. I think there's a lot that goes into CEDH. I like to play by games before I sit down. I want to sit down at the table, put my commander out, and see someone go, wait, what is that? And then have to deal with whatever's going to go through after that. You know, getting that little bit of an edge before we've even shuffled up, I think is so
Yeah,
important.
I think there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do with this list. The fact that you can win instant speed, obviously very appealing to me. I do love being able to win instant speed.
Being able to have like ways that you can't be interacted with while winning. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
unique game plan for sure. Some of the weaknesses, because it definitely seems like you mentioned it before, you're getting hit like an average Dimir player, but also you don't really play like any blockers outside of Hide and like maybe like a
There's
Ledger
all
Shredder, I
big
guess.
creatures.
Yeah,
Grow
like
Ledger
you
Shredder.
it looks like you just take
Masters.
hits.
Yeah, it is. Normally, you are just taking it until Hide comes out, or Thrix, or whatever big creature it is, right? The majority of the time, it comes down to how much you can talk about it and be like, hey, look, I am the only blue player at this table. The faster you kill me, the faster you lose this game.
Sure.
They're gonna win before you because I'm not around. if you keep me around, I'm here to stop them. Everyone here is trying to win at this table. We all understand that, but I'm going to stop them from winning before I go for anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think some of the other major weaknesses, it just gets hosed by every stacks piece that's like playable in CEDH.
Yeah.
You can't win through Rule of Law. You can't win through a Drannith Magistrate, Spirit of the Labyrinth.
You can't win through
Orcish
rule?
Bowmasters.
I would think you'd be able to, like, it'd take some setup, right? But you could probably win through a Rule of Law.
I mean, like, you can instant speed an ETI out and then untap Thoracle.
Or, like, Odawara?
Entomb, Necromancy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, there are, like, a couple of because it's Rule of Law.
One spell.
One spell.
I don't know if there's, like, a singular win con.
Yeah.
Not unless I'm just sitting on a bunch
you
of
can
mana.
do the slow Tainted Pack Thoracle play where you end step Tainted Pack down to like 2-3 cards and then untap Thoracle.
Yeah. So I think there are outs, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's definitely much harder. Like it is
when
very
you want to shove it, it's
specific
harder
outs.
to shove it through Rule of Law.
And I think something that like I always keep in my mentality is like there's always like this alert gauge in my head of okay, there's one stacks piece. I don't need to worry about the stacks piece. I'll remove it when I go to win the game. There's 2 stacks pieces. Okay, I either look for 2 pieces of removal or I bump it up to level 3, which is I'm going to wipe the board and attempt to win. Deal? So like there's kind of just like that 3 level of like alertness in my head of where am I currently in this game? What is my out? And I think it can all be played through. I think that's a big thing. Like people get so scared like, oh, don't let the stacks piece resolve. I won't be able to play my game. No, you won't be able to play the game.
Fine.
I'm doing fine until I'm going to win the game. That's just how it works for me. But it does suck sometimes when the Winota player flips 2-3 stacks pieces off the top and you're like, okay, we went from level 0 to level 3. I need to rip a Sight Grift or a Toxic Deluge.
Yeah, I mean that's just
like those are my
Winota
options.
things. Everyone's gonna lose to that.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think, and same with the Drannith issue, like or like Torpor Orb effects seem like really painful in this list, but also like Drannith and Torpor Orb, very few lists can play through that and win through that anyway. So like it's one of those like we're all in this together.
Yeah, I think one of the things that isn't necessarily a weakness, but it's definitely like a skill check and something I am 100% still learning. Is your mulligans have to be really specific.
Their control deck, they gotta be.
When you are looking at the other decks at the table, and if you don't know what's going on, you need to be keeping a control hand because you will never be faster than the other turbo deck. The reality is, yes, you can win on turn 1 to 2 if you have the nuts. But beyond that, you're probably not moving faster than them, and you have more points of interaction. So your goal is to stop them from winning, run them out of gas, and then force yourself into a position where you're most advantageous at the table, whether it be resolving a Heuristic Study, resolving a One Ring, whatever your draw engine is, or just going for the win.
Yeah. We got very compact lists. Are there any new cards coming out that you're excited for?
I have a card sitting in front of me that I was like toying around with, but I don't think it's any good. It's from the new set. It's called Likeness Looter. Have you guys heard of it?
I don't think so.
This is from
It's
Whoa,
Dimir.
Wild
It's just
Single Drain.
blue black.
This guy. Yeah, this guy's kind of cool.
It's a blue-black flyer, fairy shapeshifter, tap, draw a card, and then discard a card. And then it has a second ability. It doesn't require it to tap. It just says X, Likeness Looter becomes a copy of target creature in your graveyard with mana value X, except it has flying, and this ability activate only as a sorcery. I think that last line is kind of where it
kills
hits me.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I wish it was instant speed.
I don't
but I was
want
just
to
like-
see instant speed. I'm
Fair
glad
and
that's
balanced.
sorcery.
Fair and balanced. I would play that card if it were an instant speed.
But I was looking at it and I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, it may be interesting to like reanimate and things like that. Or like pseudo reanimate, like pitch a card and like, okay. Like I was thinking about, I was like, oh, I guess I can get Hullbreaker Horror out on my turn slower and with interaction. I'm like, this is not worth playing. But beyond that, there was a couple of new cards like people toying with Talion, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna ETI, my Talion's gonna be out, and I'm gonna lose.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything right now, but I am always looking for like more spice to throw in the list. And of course, anytime a big mana spell comes out, I'm like, I have to consider it.
For sure, those bombs are. That's what your deck is.
The moment I saw Rise of the Eldrazi, I posted about it. Like in the Discord, I was like, this card looks gas. It looks
Take an
so
extra
good.
turn,
in
draw
Hidetsugu.
for
And then
cards.
I was hit with immediate like backlash, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. This is gonna be it's gonna go so
Let the record
hard.
show.
And I was
Let
right.
the record show. I saw that card and went, "This is insane for you."
It's a Hidetsugu card.
Maybe it's a Hide card.
There's very little that I would say is like weird or off. Like everything has its place. Everything makes sense. I think for the amount of bombs that you're like, the amount you have a good balance of like bombs. Like they do varying things. You like seeing any of them at any point. All of them have their own like unique circumstances where they're going to shine or be mid at, or like it covers the wide spectrum that you need to. So I think
I think looking at the list, one of the cards that I really like going over is Diabolic Intent.
Yeah, that card's sick. Sick.
Just because if it isn't like an ETI on top, which oftentimes it is not, just because that is the most unsafe route to go for. If it is like a Rise of the Eldrazi, you can sack your commander to Diabolic Intent, draw 4 cards, and then choose the best card in your deck to fit the 4 cards you just drew, right? It's one of the cards that like at first I was like, I think I'm gonna cut this soon, and then as I went on to more like value effects instead of win the game effects, I found Diabolic Intent will turn those value effects into win the game effects.
It just puts you over the hump really, really well.
It is really good. Turns out Demonic Tutor is very strong.
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, turns out Demonic Tutor and a free spell is really strong.
Who'd have thunk it? Not me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Kristian.
Yeah,
it was
thank
a
you.
pleasure to talk about this list.
It's my baby.
Yeah.
Baby.
Love this list.
You're gonna move on past Demir, or are we sticking with this one for a while? You think?
I think I'm gonna be here for a bit. Like, there's always a little bit of like the ADHD itch of like, oh, I could play anything else. I could play Sultai. Sultai seems cool. And then I'm like, I look at a Sultai list and I'm like, but it's not Hide. And I'm gonna sit down at a table and people are like, oh, I know how to play against
And
it.
you go, yeah.
So if like another cool commander comes out that like I think is fun and like creative to build, I may like keep 2 decks on me because I don't plan on quitting CEDH anytime soon.
We got him,
So,
boys. We got him.
The ever-growing card collection will continue, and that has to include other colors at some
True.
point.
Yeah.
So whether it be like a Sans blue-black commander, which I don't think is gonna happen because I'm not gonna play Sans blue. But,
Oh, come on.
just so I have a backup deck, something that I can play to like be off of Hide for a bit. Like obviously, like I was on Veyran starting, like when I started playing CEDH, and sometimes I get that itch to like play the red cards, and then I'll look at the list and be like, no, I'm gonna play Hide.
We literally went through this yesterday. You were like, should I play something else?
yesterday.
I'm like, yeah. I mean, like you've been playing Hide for a while. Like take a break. Like we're just jamming games. Like it mix it up a little, and you're like, okay. You're like starting to like make changes, and then I saw you just pull out Hide. I'm like, man's down bad. We love it.
Yeah, that was the turn 1 Kongswings game. I just like to say the deck immediately paid off. It was like, I'm gonna stick with it. You know, I
My
don't wanna
favorite
play
thing
Veyran
about
right
that
now.
is like you're like, oh, this is a practice game. I'm gonna do some practice game stuff, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like do this in tournament every time. Turn 1 Kongswings is like it's a answer me now or I will win the game.
Well, there was also 2 other black decks at the table, and so I was like, okay, if they do something to stop my animate dead, like I'm fucked, and there's a Kongswings in my graveyard, and like, I was right. Joe was sitting on a reanimate.
Oh my God.
So
Why did you have to have access to the reanimate? So playing this out, like you wouldn't turn 1 Entomb into animate dead on Kongswings. I untap, I'm next seat from you. I draw, you draw 2. I play land, I Nature's Claim the animate dead. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. Turn passes around to you, and you're like, I think I'm gonna do this. And I start counting your mana as you're playing rocks. I'm like, this is tutor into draw into reanimate. I'm sitting with reanimate in my hand. I didn't have any fast mana, so I couldn't kill the Kongswings to reanimate. So my game plan was, oh cool, Kongswings on turn 2. That seems pretty good for me. Snatched it from me.
And what's crazy is like I'm tutoring, like, so I cast the Imperial Seal on my turn, and I'm like looking through my deck, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get to draw this card. Maybe just grab a Ristic Study for like some long lasting like longevity. I think going for the reanimate twice on the Kongswings may be a bit greedy. And I'm like, you know what? And I said it, I was like, it's a practice game. I'm gonna grab reanimate. So I reanimate the Kongswings with my remaining black mana, and Joe's just like, yeah.
I draw like the red blast like 2 turns later. It doesn't matter. You've seen so many cards.
It doesn't matter. I've already drawn 6 cards off 1 turn cycle.
No, I really like this list. I really like that you like this list. I really like that you do well with this list.
There is nothing like I think more valuable than enjoying the list that you play.
Absolutely.
Because like even when we boil it down to it, yes, we are like competitive players who are constantly looking for like the best cards to be playing within our colors. But I think if we're not having fun, there's just some level of like, I could be playing 5-color Kenrith right now in whatever brew has the best colors.
Are you bad mouthing my boy?
No, in fact, I'm not. I'm saying that it's probably the best deck in the format at the moment.
Whoa,
But instead, I've
Blue
chosen
farm,
to pick up.
Oh, no. Winota.
Winota.
Oh, yeah.
Winota.
We get this
It's
argument, we
Hide.
spiral.
It's Hide.
My bad, guys. It's Hide. Alice is right, guys. I heard him say it. Clip it. But yeah, just sitting down at a table and knowing that you're gonna enjoy your time, not because there can be crappy CEH players, but sitting down and being like, I'm gonna enjoy my time because I enjoy playing my games.
And at the end of the day, like, we're playing a game, we're playing a sport, but we're still playing a game. It's if you're not enjoying yourself, like, just take a step back,
Change it up.
do something new, take a breath, try something else. Gotta enjoy what you're doing, otherwise there's no point in doing it.
That's why I love Magic and the people I play with.
Vom.
We get like a little like the rainbow sound effect, you know what I mean? Yeah, thank you.
I'm just a walking soundboard.
Yeah, putting more work for post Joe.
You'll think I'm gonna do that? I actually might do that. I might do that.
But yeah, it's a good time. I definitely think I'll be on Hide for a while. Unless another card comes out that hoses my list. Bowmasters was scary. I thought it was the death of Hide. I'm gonna be real.
That's it. We hate Lord of the Rings.
It's right. It's just the death of a million other little things.
I think the only reason Bowmasters didn't kill my list is because I'm already on hella removal and I can run Bowmasters.
Bowmasters.
They're Bowmaster.
Bowmasters.
And then
Exactly.
your thing and hope they can't reanimate it.
All right.
Mhm.
We're gonna wrap this up. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep talking, which is fine. But probably let people go at some point. Moxfield's gonna be in the description for those who want to take a peek at what Kristian's been cooking up, what Kristian's been chefing. Once again, thank you, buddy. Loved having you on. Love that we got to talk about this list. Atlas, as always, love having conversations with you. Always feel like I learned something. And
I don't.
Damn.
No, I'm kidding.
No.
Don't keep that in. Don't keep that in.
That's here to stay. It's on the record.
It will be clipped and shipped. And then to our viewers, thanks once again for joining us down here at Man in the Rocks. We'll catch you next time.